Can ChatGPT be funny? Let's find out into this episode of AI in Marketing. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hi, hello. This is part of a series that I'm doing all about AI in marketing. You can get the link below, OnlineDrea.com/AI, to listen in on all of the episodes for free. But I want to talk about, can Chatty be funny? Because while I love Chatty, sometimes it's a little hard to get it to be funny. The immediate response is like dad joke level humor. Nothing against dad jokes. I love a little bit of humor. And also, I want it to sound like my level of humor and not like boring generic humor, which, ChatGPT is just trying to be generic. Like that instant response is going to be generic. So let's talk about how to get something that supports your vibe. Make sure to go back to episode 2 of this series to learn how you can get more tone notes from ChatGPT. But let's talk about humor specifically in this episode. Now, what I like about humor in marketing is that humor builds connection. I don't know about y'all, but when I go to social media, I am not looking to be sold to. I am not looking to be educated. Okay. A lot of the time I want to be entertained. Please entertain me. I want a little hee hee ha ha, or I want to be like, oh, that's so cute. It's very rare that I'm scrolling through social media going, what can I learn today? That's just not how I approach social media and marketing in general. And even things like podcast episodes or YouTube videos, usually I'm looking for a very specific result. And if someone brings humor to that, I'm gonna subscribe. Like you got me for life. And so humor builds connection. And I also think it just makes you feel like a freaking human behind the scenes. I know that one of my biggest compliments is when someone comes up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, Andrea, you're exactly like you are in your podcast, or you're exactly like you are on social media. I'm like, yeah, thank you. That's the easiest way for me to show up, honestly. And I wouldn't say I'm like a comedic, hilarious person. I just embed my personality into what I do. And that really helps me, I don't know, stand out against all the other marketers out there. So I want to talk to you about how you can use ChatGPT to help you with this. So one of my favorite things to do is I love a good pun. Okay. I love a pun. And I was trying to name something recently and I went through a bunch of puns with ChatGPT. Now, I will say I ended up going with something not punny, because when you're naming a product like this very here product, AI in marketing, we got to be direct. Okay. Not time for a pun usually, but I love a good pun. And so I put in my name ideas and then I'll say, instead of saying, can you make this into a pun? I say something specific like, hey, ChatGPT, here's a project that I'm working on. Can you name this as if it were a Shakespearean play? You see how specific that is? Like, I want something like, give me something punny. Or recently I did a workshop on email marketing, and ChatGPT helped me come up with a name on this one. And I said, can you give me a name that feels like an internet reference? And that's how, through a lot of back and forth, we came up with Big Inbox Energy. BEE instead of BDE. I loved it. I was like, big inbox energy. Yes, let's do it. And then I took that pun through my entire presentation that I did inside the Mindful Marketing Lab, all about how I approach email marketing. And so for me, I love that. I love that I can have this thought partner that's like, here's a project that I'm working on. Let's make it less boring and more fun, especially after I get that educational piece down. I want people to stay and listen and enjoy it and not like have a snooze fest. Right. And my natural state is to just be very tactical and educational. And for people to like have that be sticky, sometimes having humor in there makes it a little bit more memorable. Another thing that I like to do to have a little bit of punniness in my work, or even just a little bit of humor, is I've trained ChatGPT on my level of humor. Like, it kind of gets me now. So when I go to do a podcast, I use ChatGPT to help me craft some of my podcast questions. Usually I say like, here's my topic. Here's the guest. Here's kind of some questions I'm thinking about. What are some other questions that I should consider? But then after I have that conversation, I usually will say, okay, now I need a hook for this episode. Give me some ideas. Again, ChatGPT, word for word, some of these things are terrible. However, it gives me a starting place to where I can go, oh, here's an angle, here's a twist, here's an idea that I can take and run with. And that way I'm not sitting there like, how do I start this episode with a hook? ChatGPT, we've already been talking about that conversation anyways, can help me craft a hook that can be a little bit lighthearted. So for example, in a recent episode I just recorded, we were talking about podcast guesting, and I asked for a hook to start this this episode off with. It gave me a bunch of cheesy examples. And then the last one said, or start a story about your own podcast guesting experience. I was like, that's it. That's my hook. And so I started the episode with a story that I was kind of running a blank for at the time. So there you go. It kind of helped me with that story, gave me some of the verbiage so that I can have something a little lighthearted and a little bit fun and hooky to start the episode with. You can do the same thing with calls to action. Now, I have a pretty standard one that I like. When I'm talking about my podcast, I always say for your ear holes, because I think ear holes is just a funny word. Or when I'm putting a link in the comments, I say linky poo. Those are me, straight up Andrea isms. Away we go. However, sometimes I do struggle with calls to action, specifically sign-offs for my email newsletter. So after I write my email, sometimes I'll say, okay, can you give me a sign-off that's kind of cheeky, kind of funny, a little bit sassy, but in a good way, like in a friendly way. And so it'll give me some ideas there too. So you may have noticed in my email newsletters, I've been trying out something new, like a little bit of a sassy sign-off. A lot of this, 80% of it, comes from ChatGPT, right? And so for me, I tweak it. I almost always tweak it because it loves the word treasure trove. It loves the words game changer. It likes to be so over the top sometimes with the humor where you're like, this is not funny at all. But it helps me give me a direction of thought so that I can bring that energy, that essence into the work that I'm doing. What I will say is ChatGPT is terrible at being subtle. Every time I say, okay, but like, let's not have so many jokes or let's pull it back a little bit, it doesn't understand me at all. And this is why for me, I usually have it like, don't do anything funny. I'm going to add in the humor. Or if I'm talking through a concept, I'll plan out the entire concept from a very tactical perspective, make sure I get that down. Then I'll take that concept to ChatGPT and say, give me some jokes, and I'll very lightly pepper them in because subtle is not it. ChatGPT is not subtle. It's not subtle. Oftentimes I often find this too. It over explains a joke. Like I one time used a car analogy in one of my emails and I asked it, hey, can you take this email and like shorten into a social media post? Context completely lost. I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna do it myself. So it's not perfect, y'all. And also I find that some of the niche humor, especially like current internet humor, does not understand it, does not get it, can't even begin to understand it. And so you kind of have to have an ear to the ground for that. And that's why inside of the lab, I am constantly posting about internet humor, things that I see that you can layer into your marketing and explain why, the history behind it, because ChatGPT does not have that knowledge at this point in time. That being said, I still think it can add levity to your marketing in a way that could be very fun, that could be playful, that could breathe fresh life into it. And ChatGPT can help you start with that humorous edge, even help you finding and refining your own level of humor, the timing of it, the energy of it. And using this as a way to collaborate with AI and have it be your, I don't know, funny little assistant who's like very cheesy and tells very poorly timed jokes. All right. If you want help learning more about how to sound like yourself, specifically layering that into your marketing, you got to join us in the Mindful Marketing Lab. We're talking a lot about AI right now and the balance of it all. And especially this year, 2025, we're talking a lot about playfulness in our marketing. And that does require a little bit of an elegant approach. You can't be all play all day. So if you want to learn that balance, come on in and join us in the lab. Use code REAL, that's REAL, and you'll get $20 off your first month. Plus, I'll be doing social media audits for anyone who uses that code. Get a human eyeball on your account and go, what's the experience like? And I will tell you for sure what it's like, but you got to be in the lab to get that. Join us today for that. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.